Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I'm David Lochner, and I'm joined by my co-host, Cole Eccles. How are you, Cole?
Good, thanks, Dave.
Today, we're talking about really something that a lot of people have never thought about. They're really not sure or understand is actually once they are retired, where does the money come from?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things because, all of our lives we've been generating money and obviously we've been living off generally our money that's come from our work. Some people get to that position where they get some money off their investments and passive investments, but majority of people don't. So It's getting to that phase down the track as like, where's the money coming for my retirement?
Yeah.
But do you feel like a lot of people know how that's going to happen or where the money's going to come from?
No, I don't. I think we mentioned in previous podcasts, obviously people's building up money through super, and I suppose you flick a switch where you add in and it gets to the point now where and that's, I think, a lot of people, when they, with my ex-mother-in-law, when they were spending like there was no tomorrow because they hadn't really flicked in their mind that you're relying purely on your own money. There's nothing to top it up or keep coming in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people you're building up assets and it's like, okay, so what do we do? What do we do now? And there's different ways, I suppose, depending on where your money's at, what investment vehicles you're using, but how you actually get that money out or start drawing down. And again, I think in the last podcast we talked about automation and having things, and it's the same I think as well as when you get to retirement, like where's the money coming from? It's make things simple and a orderly drawdown instead of just pulling out lump sums, left, right, and centre.
Terrifying for a lot of people because it's like, if you've ever made a mistake when you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s or whatever, you've got time to fix it. Right. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I bought that car. Like, how many times I've heard that, we're at this position, we've been really good, and then something happened, right? Yeah. We needed that holiday, we needed that car or whatever. Yeah. Once you get to retirement, if you blow your money, you blow your money,
that's right?
So there's really no coming back from that. So it's getting to a position that, you've built up enough assets, and we're talking about drawing those down now, that you've built up enough to really be sensible. And what I do find most people are quite sensible because it's scary. What you've gone from accumulating money to now that your funds or your assets generally are going sort of down, and that gets uncomfortable for a lot of people. But for a lot of people that it can be neutral. So I've got so many people who are retired that their actually accounts are not coming down and down.
Yeah. And I think and then on the flip side though, you get people where, like, we've come across people where they so uncertain that they actually are a really good financial position, but they don't spend what they actually can because there's that fear they're going to run out of money, and they live quite frugally when it's not actually necessary.
Yeah. So when it actually hits, it's the mindset, and it's just really understanding where the money's going to come from, how that actually works. Most people know they've put money into superannuation, but how do they get it out? How does that thing come out?
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that if they just take it all out at once, and you can do that as well, but ideally you wouldn't. You want an orderly drawdown. So there's different things, and again, tax incentives with super as well, when you flick your super from adding to it to when you start drawing it down, and ideally you want to draw it in an orderly manner and not just this, I suppose one of the things with super is there's nothing stopping you from, working to 65, pulling out, whatever you've accumulated, 400,000, putting it all in black and then blowing it or doubling it. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But, ideally you want to be more sensible.
So how do you get money out of super? There's two ways, three ways?
Yeah, you can take a lump sum out. You can leave it in super and just pull lump sums out. You can in what we call accumulation, or you can flick it over into pension, where you basically get an income payment, and you can set the amount. There's a minimum, there's no maximum as to how much you want to get out. And that's two ways, ideal, sort of generally speaking. But with the second part about starting a pension, there's different ways you can sort of do that, different products you can use, pensions, annuities, etc. They all come with their different, pros and cons. But really it's those. You can either take it as a lump sum, all out at once, leave it in accumulation and just pull money out, make like money from, withdrawals from the I suppose, a bank account, and get money out when you need it. Or you can set it up where you get an orderly payment as an income payment, which most will make sense. If you worked all your life and you got an income payment to meet your expenses, it makes sense that when you stop working that you continue to get some sort of
new
income
paycheck.
payment.
It's a new paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
So the new paycheck is just coming from your super. And how often do they come out?
Oh, you can choose. Again, it comes in the products could be, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, annually, depending on your cash flow and what your system. So it's very flexible. The system is very flexible.
Yeah. So that's where a lot of people don't know. Like, they've built money up in the super, and then generally, if they're going to take an income stream out of it, they flick it over to pension phase once they qualify.
Yeah.
And then they can set it up. I haven't seen really a lot of super funds do it weekly, but I'm sure there is. But generally fortnightly. Most people get paid monthly, and then 3 monthly, 6 monthly, 12 monthly, or whatever. But it's just that the funding mechanism is going to be different coming to you, and that's generally from your own money, and then you can set up an amount that comes out to make sure over a period of time, over the next 20 years or whatever it may be, that that money. The biggest fear most people have is running out of money.
That's right.
So that's what you've built that money up for, to start spending the money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And if you've built it up enough, a lot of the times it can generate income and growth that, if you build up $1 million for argument's sake, that a lot of times that will still stay there next year, and you've drawn down, depending on what the returns are from the investments. And like you were saying before, there's different products available depending on how secure you want your retirement and like certainty of different amounts coming in. And also, those things can help you with the age pension and qualifying and different things around that. So there's a whole, a whole bunch of ways that actually can happen. So that's sort of superannuation. Really, you can take lump sums out and or go onto an income stream, and that can happen in a few different ways. Yeah. And then you've got, if you've got investment properties, you'd have some rental income coming in.
Yeah, you've got rent coming in there, and I think we touched on the last podcast that's a bit more. So that's a lumpy asset. So your only real income is with super, and you'll probably touch on other investments. Well, you've got the option to make withdrawals. You can get your income. If you need extra money, you can take lump sums out. With a property, it's your rental income, and that's your only source of income. Really, you don't have access to the capital unless you sell the whole asset. And then there's things like if you've got ordinary investments or share market investments in your personal name, you can choose to have that income paid to you or choose to have it reinvested. Obviously, if you're accumulating money, you want to keep reinvesting it, building up your capital growth. But once you flick that switch and you now need income, you can choose to take those dividends or distributions as income. And if you need more money, you can actually sell down investments.
Yeah, well, I find like anyone who has an investment property, or depending on what their strategy is with their retirement, when they can get to a position, generally from an income producing asset, investment properties haven't been paid down. That's what we find most common. And the income coming from them is not great. So they're not a great source generally to help you with retirement income. They're generally sold at some point in time down the future. And that, once you've got no personal income, so if you sold an investment property and you get the 50% discount because you've held it over 12 months, and then you sell it down and you can use other means, you can really bring down the amount of tax that you would pay on that to turn it into more of a liquid asset. And then that can help you, and even, sometimes that can be even put into superannuation, the money in different bits and pieces there to actually help you provide an income stream. So investment properties are really tricky, depending on when you need the money, the funding and all those sorts of things, and your age can get really complicated. And then you've got, your own place if you in a period of time, if your superannuation's not enough, and the age pension can help you out in a different scenario, but then also you could downsize your house to grab some money, and then how that overall can fund and start pulling money out of that as well. So it's getting a few different things, and then we run into the age pension maybe.
That's a lot of people. I suppose that's one where they don't really know. But again, so age pension is not everyone's eligible for that. So there's an income assets test, whichever one yields the lowest rate of pension is the one you assessed against. So it's there for, I think we touched on the last podcast, it's a safety net. So it's really people who don't have enough or need to fund themselves, and it's social security. But a lot of people would actually qualify for a part pension, maybe, again, depending on, obviously, your age, etc. So it kicks in at 60, 67 for most people nowadays. And, and like we said, the last one, depending on your situation, it can be quite a bit of income from the government. Very few people, I think, could survive on it as their sole source of income.
You're generally not going to be able to continue your current lifestyle on the age pension unless you're already on it. So unless you're on some sort of pension payments and so forth, and that's what you're living on now. Most people are earning more than what the pension payments. That age pension is not there to live a luxurious lifestyle, but it can definitely compensate and help you if you built up a bit of a nest egg aside of that. It definitely can come into the overall retirement planning and really help you tremendously as well. And that gets paid on a monthly basis as well.
Fortnightly
basis.
Yeah.
So, that's one of those things that, once you qualify, one of the things you really got to get your paperwork in for that fast as well, or be prepared, because they don't back pay you.
Yeah, and it can take a while.
And it can take a while
and
so forth. So, so when that support comes in, it's definitely a layer that can, help you out a lot. So realistically, a lot of people run into that position. Well, how much can I actually take out safely?
I think, again, that's the last part we talked, knowing your number and planning and that. So it's really understanding how much income you need. Like we model with clients on statistical life expectancy. So for female, it's 87, male's a bit lower. And working out, if you've got, ideally with the planning is if you need X amount of income, we know how much assets we need to build up to, but obviously based on what the investments how they perform, to know how much money you can draw over your lifetime. But it's such an individual thing. You need some sort of planning or calculation around that because, again, like I said before, it's that mindset is, you're accumulating, money's coming in, and then when you're relying solely on your money, it's a different ballgame altogether. So it's understanding it's how much you can take out safely really depends on the individual. But if you've got money invested, like, if you're earning 5%, let's say you got money in the bank and it's getting, well, bank's not a good idea because the money doesn't grow in value. But if you're drawing equal or less than what the money's actually generating in terms of income and capital growth, then you expect your capital to not last, but go down slightly because with inflation, etc. Yep. But generally, if you're drawing that, and on the first point about pensions, etc. So if when you get to super and you're 60 and you flick your money over to pension, by law you have to draw 4% of that. That's the minimum. And as you get older, it gets a bit more and more. So if you're drawing, say, your money in the pension and you're drawing the minimum, depending on how much you've got, your money would probably last you most of the time. And I think I was going to make the point on the age pension. It's there as a layer, and it's more about about extending the life of your own funds because you're getting this. You're not having to draw as much of your own money because you're getting this. Income being supplemented by the age pension allows you to stretch out of your own funds a bit longer.
I don't think there's when it comes to the actual question, like how can you pull it out safely, it's a unique question for everyone. Like there's a lot of things online, says 4% or 20 times your thing and all these things. They all can come into it slightly, but depending on your situation, everyone's different. Yeah. So whether you qualify for the age pension, whether you don't, whether, you need 80 grand per annum or whether you need 200,000 per annum, there's so many different factors. There's no hard and fast rule. So actually having a plan and working out what your retirement looks like, how much actual income you'll need, and then working out, then it comes down to performance of your investments. So generally people are not fully in cash when they get into retirement. And more generally they've got, share market investments, potentially they have property investments. So how all these can impact can be massive. So that's where really getting your own plan to understand how they will, affect, how to bring your income down safely.
Yeah, and it also depends on the individuals, like I mentioned in the last podcast episode about the retirement income standard, and they talk about how much money you'd need if you need to fund a comfortable lifestyle. And that assumes that you use up all your money over your life expectancy. We've had a lot of people where they want to leave money for like generational wealth, leave money for kids. And they'd say, if you want to leave money like a legacy, financial legacy for your family, then yours is different because how much you can draw down is a bit different because you don't want to spend all your money over your lifetime. So it's a very individual thing.
It's amazing when you touched on a good point there. A lot of people are, trying to get their kids a leg up into property and so forth and using some of their money potentially in retirement to, get some deposits or go and guarantor or whatever it may be. And then it's lowering the amount they have access to. And it comes down to like, how long am I going to live?
Yeah, try.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's such... I don't know if I'd want to know.
Yeah.
But getting to that position where, that your money's definitely going to, be there into your 80s, is a really common thing we try to achieve. Yeah. And also making sure at different phases of your life, you're going to be spending more. So generally, if you're retiring early, you're going to be spending more then. Yeah. And as you get older, generally, you're going to be spending less. So, taking that into account and then depending on what your assets are in, if you've got some property, whether you've got shares, whether you've got superannuation, the rate of return on all those things are going to be a little bit different and they're taxed differently and getting an understanding of that. So it's once you've built your assets up, funding your retirement can be complicated. It mightn't be just, all right, we'll just start a bit of supers paying me. You might have property transactions. You might be getting paid from shares for a period of time. You might have a business that you're selling down the track or getting an income stream for that. And, there's a lot of clients that we have as well who get income streams from other countries, that worked in other countries for a while and get, how those things work into it and all that sort of. So, for most people, it's like, what can you draw down safely? You need an individual plan.
Yeah, that's right.
There's not one rule or one thing I could say that's safe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's like, just commonly, broadly, just use that and you'll be fine. So all those numbers I see online, they're really a guide in different scenarios. You've got to really understand, with a pinch of salt, what they actually are, and what they're there to actually do. So definitely. Really getting to that position to be able to, get your income coming in, I would be speaking to your planner or doing some research on it and really get some education around this topic. I know our clients is obviously we're accumulating generally most of the time to that point. And then once we've accumulated, we actually, in our planning, we create a plan to accumulate. So let's say they're retiring at 60 for argument's sake, and then from 60, with all their assets, their income or age pension or property or business, how they're going to actually be able to plan that out. And it's not a simple process.
No. And like you said, you touched on about, investment properties are not great for income generally. So at some point it's going to be sold. And again, if that's part of the retirement income plan, there's a lot of planning goes around that in terms of trying to sell them at the right time so you're not paying too much tax, and can you get the money into super if that's what you want to do. So it's not something you can just, ideally you don't want to just be cruising along and then make those decisions as you go along. You need some forward planning.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, everyone who's been successful in building up their wealth has generally had some sort of plan, and they've generally have some sort of help with that. So look, the best in the world who have done, extremely well, they've always got their advisors, their coaches or whatever, because it's very hard to do everything yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
You only know what you know.
That's right. I watched a video the other day and the guy made a good point because forget what he was selling, it was some health thing. And he said, you could spend hours, you could probably find all the information you spend hours upon hours and get information, but then once you got information, it's like, well, what do you do with it? And you spend all this time getting to that point, and everyone's time poor these days. Everyone's looking for more time, so it's get help to get some of this.
Anyone comes to us, I always say, we're here to make you money, not cost you money, and really make it, simplify it. All those questions are answered, and then all the mistakes that you potentially would have made have stopped because we know what works and what doesn't work, and it just it really lowers the risk and also brings the confidence and clarity in whatever you're trying to do. So if you are building up your wealth for retirement and you really want to understand how the income's going to work once you get to retirement, really you need some help with different scenarios, and generally it just doesn't have to be one thing. Sometimes it can just be as simple as super. But with a lot of clients we deal with, it's it stems from might be property in there, might be shares, might be business, and even downsizing down the track. So it can be multiple ways. You could even look at annuities, you can look at reverse mortgages, you can look at a whole bunch of things to actually fund a retirement. So it's not just a simple question.
Yeah, and the downsizing one's important because there's ideally, or we touched with super is the cornerstone. It's so tax effective, and if you're going to downsize your home, there's opportunities to get money into super using the downsize can be safe. It's all. Like I said, if you don't you got to have a plan because so this may happen, that may happen, and then working that all into the plan because, like I said, you don't want to be cruising along and then making the decisions and then missing out opportunities because there hasn't been any forward planning or lack of forward planning.
Definitely. Well, thanks for your time today, Cole.
Dave.
And if you're looking to create a bit of a plan around, accumulating your retirement, but also if you're at retirement age and you need help planning out how that's going to go forward, please reach out, have a chat, and we will see if we can help. But if not, thanks for watching and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Dave.